Alex Terrace here, health hacker the last 15 years. I advise clinics, practitioners, and everyday people what to buy, what not to buy, and why to get the best possible health outcomes. I am a website and a channel that basically tries to portray no bullshit information to help consumers really discern through marketing claims and get to, the actual meat of if something is really going to accomplish the results that they are setting out to accomplish. So in this video, I will actually be going through a comparison of two different PEMF, QRS, which is the company Quantron Resonance Systems in Germany, and iMRS. And iMRS has their marketing is like 1,000 to 1, meaning so QRS barely does any marketing at all. And then iMRS does a tremendous amount. And they just actually, I think, became they had put in an MLM backend to them. They were not an MLM before, but anyways, they're trying to compete as much as possible with Beamer. Beamer's also well known, and then the other system, Pulse, if you've heard of that. Yeah, so these brands are well known. QRS used to be much more well known, not as much because they never really did any good marketing. They were on the Dr. Oz show in 2011, so they blew up, but they never really did any momentum continuation after that with marketing. That's why not a lot of people know about them or hear about them as much. So we're actually going to compare the research. So which of these brands has more research? What I try to talk about in this industry, this product category, and others, is it's really, really important if you're going to spend thousands of dollars to make sure that you are going to be buying something that is likely to give you results, right, and is also safe, right? It just kind of makes sense, right? If you're going to spend thousands of dollars, you would hope that it has some research on it, right? And they can kind of back up their claims, right? Because we kind of invest in a PEMF like iMRS or others are based on the claims, the health claims they make, correct? Right, obviously. But if you can't back those claims up, does that make sense to purchase that equipment? Everybody would agree, obviously, no, that doesn't make sense. But still, tons of people invest in iMRS, they invest in Pulse, they invest in Beamer, they invest in other things where these companies can't back up the claims. Or they have almost no research at all. Okay, so I have done another video, by the way, on Beamer and how QRS compares to Beamer. So let's just jump into it. I did want to show you actually, let's jump back to the thing here. So as you can see, this little comparison. How much studies does QRS have that's published for their specific device versus iMRS? The ratio is 40 to 0. That's right. Now, it's actually worse than that. 40, this is based off available information you find on the internet. Okay. As I told you, QRS not too good in the marketing department. So they actually, these studies, that's representative up to 2001. We're in the year 2025. So realistically, it's actually over 100 studies, at this point. So yes, it's over 100 to 0. That doesn't look too good, does it? Now, even at 40, way back when, that's still more than 95% of PEMF devices or brands on the market. Pretty sad, right? And this is going to make a lot more sense as far as why and how. This is so weird, right? I'm going to explain it, don't worry. But yeah, there was even a great study in 2019 in the pandemic in Italy, in hospitals where that was crazy, right? We all know the news. And they were doing, with the newer model, Cell Vital, they were doing tests with the lungs, with those, how people are having breathing issues, and there was lung intubation, and they compared that to actually using the Cell Vital PEMF. Cell Vital is the newer model from QRS, and they got really great results. I have that study if you want to see it. Just go below in my description box of the video, and you can grab my email address. Contact me anytime. I may actually post that study link to my Google Drive actually in the description box below as well. All right, we don't have to go through all this, and I'm actually going to blow through these slides, so we won't go over that. All right, so it's really important, and then this is kind of super logical, guys, but to be honest, people make these investment mistakes in products all the time because they don't do their due diligence, they don't think about things logically, and then they trust somebody else who thinks that might know more than them. Okay, so when it comes to the PEMF category, and this really goes for many other product categories as well, there's a lot of marketing claims, okay, out there. PEMF brands mainly will try to sell their device purely off of testimonials without controls or verification, vague references to general PEMF research, meaning just research that's been done with other types of PEMF devices, a lot of times not even having a brand on it, and it's just, there's thousands of PEMF studies, right? And it's just done with like random devices, okay? And so a lot of companies, even including iMRS, will just cite that generic research that's out there. They'll use impressive sounding statistics without sources, emotionally persuasive, scientifically empty. That's a fair critique of 95% of the marketing or education, from various PEMF. Scientific evidence, so again, just to be clear, instead of scientific evidence, most PEMF, including iMRS, will use this here, okay? What we're really wanting, if we're going to spend thousands of dollars, and it's something important like our health or the health of our patients or our loved ones, what we're looking for is peer-reviewed published studies, controlled trials, statistical analysis, reproducible methodology and results, verifiable outcomes for these specific devices. Obviously, right? This stuff is so obvious. Okay. Remember, we want proven benefits, not marketing promises. Remember, it's confusing. I know. We'll go over this, but marketing promises sound. It's when you see like a list of health benefits, say with a specific PEMF. Remember, that's actually a marketing promise. So if they're like, I don't know, reduction, have less pain, okay, or you're gonna sleep better, have better sleep quality, which is kind of vague, obviously, because sleep is pretty complex, or better circulation, more energy, right, whatever. You get the idea. So most PEMF companies will cite on average like 10 to 15 benefits, but shouldn't they be held accountable to backing up the claims, like actually explain how you're gonna get that? Like, if you're listening to this and I was like, listen, I'm gonna help you lose a little weight and have more energy during the day, and you're gonna hire me as a health coach, right? I'm gonna charge you $1,000 for a month or two. All right. I mean, for your $1,000, right? When you hire me and I talk about your weight loss or more energy, like, don't you expect that I'm actually going to kind of educate you a little bit on how we're going to get those results, and I'm going to actually like walk you through it, you know what I'm saying, to get those outcomes? Okay, but in the case of PEMF, like, people are investing thousands all the time, like with iMRS, and they see the benefits, like they hear about them, but they just don't have any expectations on the company to provide them any explanation of how they're going to attain those health goals, reach those health goals, or get those health benefits. And they just pay them with their credit card or check for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. In the case of other systems out there on the market, they can go up to $20,000, $40,000, $60,000. And practitioners are buying those devices all day long. Yeah, and so there's companies making millions and millions of dollars, just to be clear, without backing up one damn claim. Okay. 30 years on the market, QRS has been around, okay? Global usage, lots of research, more marketing-based approach. Scroll down, not most interesting slide. Again, remember I talked about iMRS will just cite general PEMF literature, okay? So it doesn't really have to do with the iMRS specifically. Marketing self-claims, meaning like, even if they marketed like a specific like benefit to it, like, use iMRS and you're going to get this benefit. Nobody else outside of iMRS also has like, said, yes, we independently verified that using the iMRS, you could get that benefit. Nobody's even done that. I mean, it's super lazy if you think about it. Like, you could have some practitioner with some kind of reputation online or whatever, right? And they could be like, hey, we used the iMRS on 20 of our patients for this specific condition. And these are the types of results that we saw, over the course of several months. Like, is that complicated to do? Especially when you're making millions and millions of dollars. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so you almost have to wonder, like, where's the integrity? Like, what's the deal? Is it just all about the money? Is that really what it is? Because that's not that hard, is it, guys? So there's absolutely lots of practitioners with varying specializations and degrees and licenses that are using an iMRS. I can promise you that, or using some other brand. Okay, and those practitioners, I'm sure that they hit them up for testimonials, all that good stuff, when they could be doing case studies with them, but they don't do that. So let's see here. So again, we're always looking for device-specific research, okay, ideally, and this is what most PEMF brands actually lack, okay? Now, in the research, and remember, there's more than this. They cover the widest amount with QRS. They cover the widest amount of health conditions, tests, and research than any other PEMF in the market. It's a very large amount of health conditions. These are really just mentioning just very, very few. So that also sets it apart. I can't even remember how many it was. Again, it's about almost the same amount of studies. It could be maybe 60 or 70 different types of health conditions and situations. So it's very impressive that they've tested it to have great efficacy. Every single study with all these different conditions has always shown statistically demonstrated positive outcomes, as it's saying here, which is actually impressive not just for a PEMF. It's impressive for just about any other health modality or device or equipment. That's actually extremely rare. And because they have a pretty much 100% positive outcome and almost everybody gets results, that's why they offer 6 months return window with the QRS. The iMRS does not offer 6 months, of course, because their return rate would be much higher if they offered that. The actual return rate on the QRS matches up with satisfaction. It's about on average 1 to 2% return rate, and about 1% of that, if not a little bit more, would not have returned it if the dealer had basically coached them properly in how to strategically get the best results for them. Okay, so not every dealer that's selling a QRS is always doing an adequate job when it comes to coaching, just to be clear. So the return rate probably could be less. If you work with myself, who has a lot of experience with this, and also I work with the main importer of the last 20 plus years, we can coach you, at least so a little over 99% of the time, people are going to get outcomes if they work with us. All right, iMRS research published at a glance. Nothing. That's what this slide is about. Okay, and literally, it was a pretty thorough research that we looked into. All the major places that you would find PEMF research, none exists, is the short answer. Okay, so just couldn't really find anything at all. No citations, nothing. Let's see if I got anything else good here on, again, this, I'll put the link below for this statistic because it kind of educates a little bit about like what you should be looking for in studies as well. And the reason that's good to kind of look at is because you will sometimes find, it's rare, some PEMF does have like some studies. And just because they list, let's say, 6 or 7 studies, that doesn't mean any of them are good or adequate or really meet any kind of proper standards where you would actually take it seriously. Okay, the reproducibility, any statistical significance, maybe there's no double blind, maybe there's no randomized controlled aspect to it, maybe there's no placebo controlled aspect to it, okay, sample size, like I could keep going on, you see what I'm saying? So like in the case of Beamer, for example, they have very few studies, and most of them you can throw out for several reasons, and then you're pretty much left with two. Do you know how much money that company has made? It made a lot of money. People at the top are getting extremely rich, and including the MLM distributors, some of them are making a lot of money. And with all that money, they don't give a shit about proving anything or doing any due diligence with research. They're happy with their 2 crummy little studies. Okay? That should say a lot about that company. Just think about the logic of that. Why they wouldn't want to, evaluate if the BEMER or the iMRS for the matter is going to help with, let's say, osteoarthritis. That's a common condition, right? What about chronic pain syndromes? What about that? What about osteoporosis? What about people that have like wounds that won't heal? What about like diabetic neuropathies or things like that, or peripheral artery diseases? What about like cognitive issues and brain related things? They just apparently don't care. A lot of these companies, they don't care if their device helps with that or not. They don't have any interest in researching to see if that's the case. At the end of the day, most companies are just about how much money can I make selling these PEMF devices. Okay? And let's make sure that our return window is not too generous, right? Because if people find out after a few weeks, those initial results they thought they saw are tapering off and disappearing, well, they're going to be stuck with their device. So that's also why the return windows for most brands are not that long. Okay. So I don't really feel like I need to go. I kind of hammered home a lot of the points, and you'll have access to the slide below anyways. There's really not much to talk about, guys, because there is no research to go over. Do you see what I'm saying with iMRS? And yet, let's pop over here on the iMRS website. Their marketing, their science section. Let's click on that for a section, because when you click on that, right after you read everything else, you're thinking like, all right, how am I going to? I think I can justify the several $1,000s here. I can't remember what it is now, maybe 5,000 something. All right, I could maybe justify this, 5,000 bunch of money, right? Because I'm going to jump onto this page right here, and it's going to by the time I read this, I'm going to be like so convinced, right, that this is definitely going to work on me. But no, that's actually not what this page is about. What this page did it kind of like a okay job with, and I won't say it's not useful things to learn. Not everybody really needs to know this stuff. Is they basically are just doing almost like Wikipedia based explanations of these scientific or physics, really, these physics concepts. Okay, that's really what this page is about. It's just general education on this, which again you might read on Wikipedia or something like that. So, that's it's cool, interesting information, and gives you a little back, and you get a little bit more of a understanding of how a PEMF could potentially affect you. You know what I mean? Kind of, but that's it. As far as it does any of this science directly correlate to how it's going to give you, help you with a specific health condition or a specific health goal? Absolutely not. There's nothing on this page for that. So that's my whole point. How are people justifying ordering this? I just don't understand. Okay? I just do not understand. So if you're thinking about spending this amount of money, just realize this, that there is always a percentage of people that will get results with things that generally maybe don't really work. Like the placebo effect can be quite strong. It cannot be underestimated. That people can actually get results from just about anything. But more so, and I'm not saying, by the way, that because I know the actual science of what this iMRS actually produces. So I can tell you that for some specific types of conditions, somebody might notice some benefits with this system for some short period of time, a shorter window of time. That's not that's not possible. And the reason I know that is just because I know who actually was responsible for the research. They won't disclose this. They won't disclose what group it was and individuals, but I know. So that's why I can tell you, I know what generation of PEMF, and what type of waveform was really created for this. And it does work, but it's an older generation. So the results will be a little more narrow in terms of the amount of conditions it can help. It's more limited. And the window of time that people may notice results may also be a little restricted. So some people may get some results for a month or two, and then it may taper off. And some people may get nothing at all. So it's risky, basically. It's risky. You'll roll the dice and invest in it, and you might be one of the lucky few, get some kind of results with what you have going on for a period of time. Some people get longer term relief, but most it's very short lived. And that's just from feedback and talking to people and things like that, and hearing from all sorts of people over the last 10 years. But again, you're kind of rolling the dice here, because there's just not enough research done on it. You see what I'm saying? So, but it's not just an iMRS. This critique could be warranted for other brands. You're always kind of rolling the dice a little bit with most PEMF that haven't really proven anything. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, well, you have less of a chance of something else working for you if they haven't come to the table at all with any sort of research to prove anything, right? So, financially, this is a risky investment versus a QRS. I mean, that's the ultimate conclusion. And at the end of the day, it's also risky just from a return window standpoint. Think logically about it. If you have two options, one with a shorter return window and one with 6 months, what is the riskier investment? The one with the shorter return window, obviously. It's kind of even like regardless of the research, obviously one is still riskier, right? Because it's a shorter return window. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, isn't this very super easy logic that one would choose a QRS because it has a longer return window? I mean, regardless of doing any other due diligence, like, duh, 6 months, right? That's a long time to see if your benefits taper off, or if you get new benefits. You're like, oh, I got these. Because sometimes people will continue to get new sorts of health changes the longer they're using something, right? You might get some incredible changes 4 months down the road using a QRS. Well, good thing that you have a return window that long, so you could have seen those other results, right? Some people will get certain symptom improvement and benefits day one, or their very first week of using a QRS. It just all depends on a wide variety of factors, really. So that's all I have to say on that. This may have been very eye-opening for a lot of people, because these companies do so much like really intelligent, creative marketing, and they may also have a lot of intelligent people, influencers, practitioners, and people that endorse their products, which all seems very convincing, right? Just remember that if you see somebody endorse a product and you have a lot of respect for them generally, and they maybe even have done some impressive things that are really great, you know what I mean, just really helpful, and they might be like a really impressive practitioner, for example, with a reputation. If they endorse a product like a PEMF, for example, that doesn't mean they've actually done any adequate research, believe it or not, on that PEMF. Just realize that you have to do your due diligence. I could give you so many examples of generally, health educators who are great people and very smart and have done amazing things with their career, endorsing crap. It happens all the time. Are they selling out? I don't know. I could really make a whole other video about it. You know what I'm saying? So don't be fooled. Don't be convinced. Just because QRS isn't on like the hottest podcasts and like, hitting up like biohacking conferences, with models at the booth, right? And, you get the idea. Just because they're not doing all that stuff doesn't mean they're not the best on the market. So you always reach me anytime, 7 days a week. My email address is below in the description of the video. Hopefully you learned something.